Hi, everybody. Welcome to Creative Quarantine. I'm your host, Angélique Roche, and I am here with the birthday boy. Is it? Yep, that way. The birthday boy, Byron Isaacs. Hi, Byron. How are you, sir?
Hi, I'm great. How are you?
I am great. I am great to hear that you're having a great birthday,
I am,
considering, because you are
all things
surrounded by
considered.
family.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm naturally kind of a homebody. I think because I've spent so much of my life on the road, um, I don't take being at home for granted. Like I soak in. I like a hermit crab or something. I dig myself into the sand and just, I can go into hibernation mode like that and just stay there. It's
I
like
love it.
I in this whole time I've only had one kind of like down day where my mood was like flagging, and then it like perked back up. It's like, to me, I don't mind the isolation. I'm totally a hermit. It's great.
Well, speaking of touring, like, so you have a very long resume. You've done a lot of things, but folks may recently know you as part of the Lumineers, and y'all were on tour when all of this kind of started, right?
Yeah, we were just about to complete the first leg of the US tour for this new album that dropped in the fall. And so we kind of spent most of last year doing promotional stuff. But we began the tour really in earnest in January, mid-January. And we in mid-March, we cut the last 2 days short and flew home early. And now we're just kind of sitting around waiting to see when we're going to play again,
Yeah.
you know?
Well, it's interesting too, because I feel like there were a lot of folks in the music industry who took a really big stand. It was like, no, we're not even going to risk gathering people. Just cut it short. We
Yeah.
know innately there's more than 500 people in this crowd. We know
Yeah.
that this is not the type of gathering. Like, what goes into that kind of thought process when you're like, hey, this is the pros outweigh the cons, cut it short? Or and how do you shift priorities in that space?
I think it was all just happening so fast. And it was like, as the information was coming in and as we were processing it, like at first, it really didn't seem like it was going to bear on our tour at all. And then just things just very quickly were changing. And then it's like, wait a second, this could be a problem. And then suddenly it was like, oh, we're reaching down and touching all these people's hands. Maybe we should all wash our hands immediately together after we come off the stage. And this all like in just a couple of shows before we cut the thing off. It's like we went from like, oh, like this is great. Like we're gonna finish this leg out. Can't wait to get down to South America. Then we're gonna go to Europe, and then like to like we better wash our hands like as soon as we get off stage. To like, we have to cut this short and all fly home now, and hopefully we'll still be doing shows, you know, shortly. And then like we all get home and we're waiting and stuff keeps falling off the calendar and falling off the calendar and disappearing. It's just opening up to conversations like, well, maybe, maybe we can do something in November and December. It's like, okay, maybe, and someone in the band was just like, why don't we just say that 2020 is just off? Why don't we just like forget 2020? And it's like, oh my gosh, this was still, March. We're like,
Yeah.
this is crazy. Like it was that fast. So almost too fast for us to process it at the time. It was kind of just having to react spontaneously. And I think after the fact, you think, wow, should we have canceled shows earlier? But it was all happening too quickly to even know whether it was appropriate to cancel yet or not. Like it's just, I remember we decided to see, like during the NBA said, we're going to make an announcement on Tuesday of like the next week. What was that? It was like, this is like early March. and they were like, next Tuesday, we're going to make an announcement as to what we're going to do going forward. And we're like, all right, when the NBA makes their announcement, because we're also playing arenas, we're just going to follow whatever they say. And so, that was kind of the way we were just like, how do we make decisions? There's so many people, so many hundreds of people whose livelihood is depending on this. Like, who makes that call to just cut this short? It's kind of crazy.
They have not canceled anything else in 2020.
I'm sorry, what?
It made it sound like they've canceled all
Oh
of 2020.
yeah. My wife is very helpful, and she was just like, I just made it sound like the Lumineers have canceled 2020, and that has not happened.
No,
we're still planning on trying to do stuff. But what I'm just was illustrating was the decision making is still just so.
Yeah, it's a magnitude, right? And you really don't know, and we're all kind of in this together, step by step, day by day. Like, there was just an announcement today in New York, which no one would have predicted, that New York is going to be until April 29th. And so every single day, things are shifting. And if the city isn't working, there isn't anything anyone could do. So who knows? By August, things could be different. By October, things could be different. And I think that's one of the unique things about this space. That we're all in, particularly as creatives, because normally you kind of have that, you work backwards, right? Like, this is going to be the date, you work backwards, you start producing, you start getting things together. And this is much more of a fluid existence that we're in.
It's day to day.
Every single day, right? So for you, how has your creative process kind of adjusted as in this state of flux?
Well, I'll say that to a certain extent, having been a freelancer for so many years before I joined the Lumineers, for the most part, I had toured with some other bands, but I was cobbling together, a makeshift career of many, many bands that were just playing here and there and trying to Tetris together a schedule, and everything was in flux all the time and changing. And I was constantly realizing I double booked myself and then trying to cover myself and not, burn bridges with my friends, but keep, money coming in and stay creatively fresh and all of that. And so in a certain way, it kind of prepared me for, I think any freelancer is kind of okay with the idea, with uncertainty. Like, you have to be. It's a rough path to take. You kind of have to be drawn to spontaneity anyway. Yeah. So to a certain extent, it hasn't really messed with my mind that much, but I do see how the not knowing is the hardest part, and I have friends who are really, really having a hard time processing the inability to make plans, and like you're saying, we, generally speaking, you plan out in advance and then everything falls into place, in retrograde, and then you know what to do today because you've got it all planned, out into the future, and it's all kind of topsy-turvy and backward from that. And some people, start to get in, they get so crazy with it. They're just like, I'm just going to have a dinner party with friends who have COVID just so that I get it. And then it'll be over with. And then I'll know.
No,
it's just like, don't do that. But it reminds me so much of, it's a very human thing for the anticipation to be in some ways the most excruciating part, and just the not knowing. It reminds me of, there had been this story that I heard, back in school days, about a young Puritan woman back in the old, early days of the U.S. in the 1600s sometime. And these Calvinists believed that only a certain number of the people were the elites went to heaven and everybody else went to hell. And nobody knew whether they were of the elite or not. And so, this one woman just couldn't take the not knowing and threw her own baby down a well just so that she'd know.
Wow.
And so, you know, the uncertainty is hard. I think that for a lot of people, it's just the hardest part, you know, even just not knowing what the rest of their year is going to look like, how to plan anything. People who love to plan stuff are completely at a loss, you know.
Do you feel like, for you, how are you staying grounded? Like, are you still writing? Are you being inspired? Like, what has been kind of your process in taking a step back, and if at all, being able to still be that creative we kind of know you to be?
Well, luckily I have some friends who are, you know, sending me tracks to record bass on remotely. And so I've done some of that, and some guitar, and, like, you know, I've actually been quite busy with some of those projects. Yeah, I've been trying to write. I try to do, you know, as much music as I can in a day. The thing is, I really love playing with people. You know, what got me into music, what made me really fall in love with playing was jazz originally, which is, you know, it's the joy of jazz is you're improvising in the moment with other musicians, and everything that they do completely, it's your spontaneous reaction to what they do that causes you to do what you do, and vice versa. And it's just this this incredible spontaneous event that's absolutely communal. And sitting alone with these little headphones on, with my bass, with the little, you know, the waveforms going by on a screen, without being able to interact and just see, like, the eyebrow go up if I do something good, or the you know, the smirk if it's not right. It just, you know, even if you're in the studio, it's like, even if it's just, you know, I'm overdubbing bass, but, like, having the producer or the artist there, and, like, it's like we're all doing it together, even if I'm the only one playing. And now I really feel like I'm, you know, in an outpost on the moon, beaming stuff back. And it's hard. That part's hard. I don't love that process. But
and we were talking about earlier, like, you have been a musician for a very long time. Like, you come from a family of artists,
and it's amazing that I'm only 29 again.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look.
I've been 29 a long time.
Are you trying? You're setting a record, and I'm here for you. I support you. I support you a lot.
Yeah, I've been playing a long time.
So how did you get into, because I'm always so curious, particularly with folks who this is what they do. Like, if anyone's noticed from this conversation, which I love, there's never been a suggestion that you go do something else. It is always, how do I continue doing music? Because it is so key and core to who you are. When did you decide that you were going to be a musician?
I was 15 years old. At the time, I was very serious about theater. I was sure I was going to be an actor. And you know, for a 15-year-old, I was pretty good, and I was probably pretty arrogant. And but I was very, very serious. I wanted to do theater, you know, like not musicals. I wanted to do theater. I liked, you know, hard stuff that was intense, you know, like
my musical characters. Heart is hurting.
I know. Kind of hurts my heart too. Anyway, I was at my my older sister was already married. She got married very early, very young. And under her and her husband's bed, while I was visiting, I just saw this long, slim case, you know, and I pulled it out. And it was this big, crazy old, like, really beat up looking Fender bass. And it was just the coolest biggest, funkiest electric thing I'd ever seen, you know, and I picked it up and just started, you know, noodling with it. And I don't know, just something happened, and I was obsessed. And that next birthday, they gave it to me as a gift. Yeah, and I still have it. I still use that bass a lot. And so it was honestly like everything changed on a dime. I got that bass. I got very obsessed. And then the next thing that changed was a friend of mine in high school whose dad was a jazz musician, and he is also a jazz musician, by the way, gave me a Charles Mingus record. And it was blues and roots. That record came on, and I had never heard anything like that. And just the power and beauty and viscera of that album, it was like the heavens opened up and the hands of God came or throttled me by the neck. And it was like, you must play this music. And so I ended up joining the jazz band in high school, and you know, got my hands on an upright bass, and it was just like, oh my God, this is it. And I still like finished out and like did the senior musical in high school. And actually that friend, whose name is Matt Pavolka, who's also a bass player here in New York City now. Matt Pavolka and I were the two male leads in that musical.
May I ask what musical it was?
Very funny. Guys and Dolls. Yeah, I was Sky Masterson, and Matt was Nathan Detroit.
All I want is pictures.
Oh my God, it was very funny.
Oh, but you left musical theater, and you.
Yeah, that was it. And it was like music from then on. It was a complete left turn, boom, just like, and I, you know, and it was like too, because it was sort of an acting family that I came from. So there's like sort of pressure from above, like my siblings and my mom especially, and all this, and like music was my own thing. It was like, you know, I was free, and so it felt like this. I don't know. It was kind of an explosion of creativity that just all of a sudden was there, and yeah, and from then on, that's been plan A. I never had a plan B. Like I can't even think of what I'm not qualified to do anything else.
I find that hard to believe, but I will take it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's very interesting because folks aren't, because there's another conversation we haven't had yet. So I grew up around jazz. Charles Mingus is huge, like that was my Miles, that was my Coltrane, that was my JJ.
Yeah.
And like, I am a huge jazz fan. And for me, you know, New York has such this amazing jazz. I mean, on a good day, it's got a great jazz scene. Like we've all been to the 2 a.m. Smalls Improv, right? Like
that's why I moved here originally, was just to play jazz. I was just a jazz player when I moved to New York. That was it.
And I think it's interesting because we had this we were having this conversation a little bit before we went live, and you made me think about it. Is this like, what does it look like in this new reality when you're talking about, we both are very accustomed to these small, close jazz joints. Like when I would say small, if you've never been to Smalls, if you've never been to Mesro, if you've never, like it's not Birdland. It's really, really tiny. But that's where so much creativity and so much inspiration come from. Because you're there on a jam session 2 o'clock in the morning, the SNL musicians show up, the musicians from the other jazz joints show up. Like everybody is just there, and it's so amazing. You know, have you seen anyone try to replicate this digitally, or someone try to like kind of bring this together? Or are we just not there yet? Can we do that? I don't know.
I'm seeing people doing cool collaborations via like the acapella app and stuff like this. like Charlie Hunter has posted a few things where he'll just put a thing of himself and he'll say what the BPM is. It's like, okay, here's 140 BPM, and he just starts like playing this riff, and then pretty soon it'll start popping up with like, now a drummer's like laid down a groove, and then now another guitar player is like doing something on top of it, and like, and you know, people keep adding stuff. But as far as the joy of improvising together at the same time, just as far as just the playing, not even regarding the audience, I think that's the hard part right now, like figuring out how to actually play together and not just layer it on. I think the platform for getting music to people is a lot more evolved than the platform for actually collaborating in real time, you know. So I think, and all of us sitting here alone in our places are longing for that, like, you know. And there's some technology available, but some, like, the stuff that really works, there's still a lag, and it can be expensive, you know, like the better stuff that like only goes from satellite, you know,
Yeah.
to try to minimize lag, and it's still not perfect, and it's difficult to set up. I don't know. That's the thing that we're really missing, and it's like, if your whole career thrives on or depends upon group improvisation, like, you're kind of in trouble, you know. And I don't know. I'm curious to see if we get some technological leaps to help us with that.
Yeah, and I think the question is, you know, I think part of me is like, I want it, and part of me is like, I don't. I want. Can you ever replicate that in the space in which, you know, some of the greatest pieces you've ever listened to is because of a jam session?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, in the midst of all that, what do you hope? Like, do you hope we figure it out? Do you hope that we get back into a Smalls or a Mesro, or, you know, Snug Harbor down in New Orleans? Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I always try to steer my mind away from hoping for the past, you know, and instead look at just where is the artistic spark coming from, and just figure out how that's going to get out, because flowers are going to crack through the concrete somewhere, you know. They're going to make it out. And so, you know, jazz musicians especially right now, but all of us, all musicians have a big old slab of concrete on us right now, but it's going to get out. And I don't exactly know how it's going to look. I don't know when people are going to feel okay about crowding together in a little tight space with a bunch of strangers, you know, like sharing the same air and getting hot and sweaty together. And like, you know, when are people going to feel okay about that? I don't know. And our club's going to have to change, or like, I don't know how it's going to look, but I know that the creative impetus is going to make it pop out somewhere. And I think if I had a better imagination, I might be able to, like, you know, call it now, but I have no idea what it's going to look like. I would love to see those same scenes back again and flourishing in the same way. But I guess we just have to see how people feel about clubs, about theaters, about arenas, about stadiums. I mean, on every level, like from the, you know, even house concerts don't feel safe. And so, you know, we're just going to have to keep our minds open, be ready to pounce.
And I love it, right? Because even that the message in that is that it will happen, right? It is coming. There's
Yeah.
going there. We as human beings, right? Like this concept of music, this concept of it being the soundtrack of our lives. Like even now, people are writing about this very moment, and that
Yeah.
music has always and will always be a part of the human connection.
Yeah.
Before I forget, human connection, guys, if you want to ask any questions, I know we're having like this amazing conversation right now. You can just type in the comments, or you can type in the live chat on YouTube or in the live chat on Twitch. We are on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. So all of you you can do all of those things. We do have one question from Stormageddon. I think I kind of asked it, but I want to ask it again. Have you found any songwriting inspiration as a result of everything going on right now?
A lot of inspiration, but almost a little too overwhelmed so far to really start to put it into words. And there are a lot of people right now writing really great stuff about this, and so, I think sometimes when you find yourself in the middle of like something happening like this, you have there's a natural instinct against redundancy. And so I think there's a part of me that's resisting finding the words until I know that I have that I've found a unique perspective. I don't want to just pump redundant art into the world. But yeah, I mean, there'll be. I'm feeling very inspired, and something will come out soon.
And what does that process look like for you? Like, I'm always curious about. Some people wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning and they just start writing on a sheet of paper, and then they come back to it later and they're like, "Oh, that's what I meant to say." And then some people really just like sit down and they create the space for it. What does the process for songwriting look like for you?
Honestly, I have to say every song has had its own process. I've never had like a strict way that any two songs have come together. I have woken up with a full song in my head from a dream. It's only happened twice, I think, and they were good. I wish that happened all the time. That's almost never happened, but it did happen twice. There are other times that I've literally kept coming back to work on a song over the course of years. And it just like, I know it's just so close to being so great, but it's just kind of like, why is it not working? Why is this doesn't feel right? And like, keep putting it down and then keep coming back to it. In the meantime, like a dozen songs will just like, come out in 20 minutes a day, a week, all. And I'd say right now I have probably at least 15 like songs in various stages of completion sitting around that are like, percolating. And most of the percolation is subconscious, but it's like every one of them has its own story. Some are lyrics first, most are music first. Mm-hmm. It's always a joy when I get words first, because for me, words are the hardest. Like I'll write instrumental music all day. Like that's no problem. But really, really finding good words, you can really wreck a good piece of music with lousy words. We've
all been there. We've all seen it. Which is also interesting, right? So like kind of as we got it, those, we're going to be winding down. So if you have a question, make sure you ask it now, just as a reminder to everybody.
Are we already winding down?
Already, like, send people happy birthday messages. It's his birthday. I want this all in the comments. For those out there who may be musicians or songwriters or poets or just plain writers, like, do you have any advice? Because it sounds like you give yourself a lot of permission to just let it happen. But do you have any advice right now? Because honestly, we are in extraordinary times.
We
And
are.
folks think they're going to write the next great American novel. And that's a lot of pressure.
Well, and the truth is that some people will write that great American novel from this. Many, we might get a lot of incredible art out of this. You know, hard times are the font of so much great art. I mean, in a lot of ways, that's when we really turn to the arts, right? I mean, it's not just the inspiration, but it's also the salve. It's the balm, you know, like it springs forth from us in the hard times, and then it holds us and embraces us in those same hard times. It's and we're all, you know, all of us who are blessed to be in the creation of it have this sort of what's the word I'm looking for? It's just it's a beautiful ongoing world hive mind conversation, and I think in a very energetic way, it's all the movement of love.
Yeah, I love it. We have a question from Jim Keller. What are the songs he wished he had written? I feel like you know this human being.
I know Jim, and do you want me to say, Jim, most of your catalog? Is that the answer you're looking for? Jim Keller, for those who are watching who don't know, his most well-known song is Jenny 8675309.
Just a little ditty. Just a little ditty. No big deal.
Yeah. Oh, Jim, you know the answer to that. There's so many songs I wish I'd written. And yeah, a handful of them are yours.
Oh. Oh, true friendship. Oh, true friendship. But you know, I think that's always so interesting, right? Because people forget how interconnected the music world really is at the end of the day, and how folks do know each other and work with each other. And, you know, after all this is over, man, do you have like dreams, goals, aspirations? What's the first thing you want to do when this is and by over, I mean, what's the first thing you want to do once we've gotten past the worst? Like, I also do want to acknowledge, like, right now is a very hard time for a lot of people around the world. New York is going through a lot right now, and that in the midst of this conversation and trying to find these small spurts of hope that I hope keep people in their homes, and keep people thinking about how they ground themselves in the necessity of social distancing and self-isolation, and really thinking out of the box. But also having kind of a light, like, what is the first thing you want to do when, if we do what we're supposed to do, we're able to push the spread back?
I mean, for me, it's just to get right in a room with other musicians and just make music together. That's it. I long to just be eyeball to eyeball, you know, just breathing in each other's breath, like making music together. Like I just like my skin is itching for it. Like every fiber of my being is longing for it.
Yeah.
That's what I missed.
Yeah. All right. So, on a happy note, it is your birthday. What are you keeping? What is in your mind right now that's keeping you upbeat on this your 29th again birthday today?
Let's see. There's part of what I do every day is I do try to focus on everything that's actually really great, because, you know, we're getting slammed in the news with a lot of very bad news. And I know people who have passed, and I know people, lots of people who knew people and loved people who have passed, and just the numbers of people just very sick is so staggering. And it's like, to be, I don't know, this is going to sound weird. I think about dying. I meditate on it. It's a Buddhist meditation that I discovered, and this is what I do. And I actually like, and to be honest, I think it's made me happier. I know it's very strange, you know, and I don't think people want to hear that. But here's a funny thing. My wife had this. She had read an article that said that people who think about death at least 5 times a day are happier, and so she found an app called, I think it's called Croak, and like 5 times a day it just sends you a message about how you're gonna die. And
Wow.
I think she dealt with that, like, I don't know, for 2 days maybe before, you know, she wiped it. But there is a lot of evidence that people who really cozy up to the idea of death actually are happier in general, and enjoy their time on Earth a little bit more. Maybe not a whole lot more, a little bit more. And so actually every day I meditate on dying. And that's true. That's probably the most substantive answer I can give you there.
Well, but it is an answer, right? Because I think that, you know, everyone's got to have that thing that gets them to that place. And no two people's thing is identical. And I think that part of it also is a part of the process and figuring out how to ground yourself. How do you adjust to this process? Because you've got kids, like you've got a whole nother layer of life with homeschool, doing this kind of work. And it takes a lot of that adjustment and holding on to those things. So I don't know if it's weird. It's just you.
Well, maybe the two aren't mutually exclusive.
Oh my God. Byron, thank you so much for being. For folks who want to follow you, because I know you're on the Grams, you're on Twitter, you've got an awesome website with your whole. It's very nice. It's very engaging. Can you let the folks who are tuning in right now find out how to follow you and where they can find out more about what you'll be doing while this is happening and after this is slowed down?
Yeah. So yes, as you said, I'm the Byron Isaacs on Twitter, or not Twitter, Instagram. To be honest, like Twitter, I do so rarely. I'm not that good on Twitter or very active, but I do have an account. But the Byron Isaacs on Instagram, just plain old Byron Isaacs. I have a friend page and a musician page on Facebook. And then, ByronIsaacs.com. And I don't know, what else is there?
I mean, you can always search them on Spotify. It's very easy to find all your cool work and all the stuff that you've done. For those who are watching, tune in tomorrow, Tuesdays at 2. We will actually be talking to Vida Ayala. They are a comic book writer. And they are a writer in general, and we're talking about the writing process again, just in a different way, shape, and form, more short story. But I want to just say thank you so much, Byron, for taking the time out on your birthday, and also just like for this amazing conversation. Like this was incredible.
This is really fun. Thank you so much.
Bye, guys. If I can get to the end broadcast, there we go.